that you see over there, it's called the vault. That is what the linear particle accelerator will be inside. It hasn't been delivered yet, but the walls are anywhere from 3.5 to 7.5 feet thick of concrete. And on the outside of that wall is where the piece that Richard Rowland is creating is going to go. So I don't have a draft or anything like that I want to share yet. But we're in the process. We've had our first of 3 firings at the Astoria Dragon Kiln for the tiles that will go into that mosaic. The hospital, which you probably know, is a Plane Tree facility. And so Plane Tree is this patient-centered care organization that we're a part of. We're a designated Plane Tree facility, one of just the few of the critical access hospitals in the country that have that designation. And the only one in Oregon. And so the sculpture is going to, or mosaic is going to be a bas-relief mosaic of a plane tree that sort of will kind of come out of the wall a little bit, and patients will be able to walk right up and touch it. And it's going to be located in a garden. So from about right here over, all of this section will be what's called the healing garden. And there's a water feature that's going to go in that healing garden, and then the mosaic that Richard has placed. And there's an activity room where yoga classes and support groups and other education sessions will go on in that activity space, and we'll walk through it when we're in there. But there'll be a big nice window into the garden and also a door so that patients can access from out here or from inside. So we will have 2 medical oncologists working in the building. Dr. Jennifer Lysette and Dr. Amrita Desai. Their names are also in here for you. We currently have 1 medical oncologist. So that, and right now it is at times difficult to get into her just because of she's the only hematologist in our community as well as oncologist. So there is a big demand from the community for her service. When you come in, the elevator to go to the 2nd floor is right there, and the registration desk will be right here along this wall. So patients will come and check in, and then they'll come over here into this. Artists who are working with us are local artisans to create things. The lights in this area will be custom lights. So Kestrel Gates, and I'm going to butcher his last name, but Lum Quang, who run Highlights Gallery, are making the lights that are going in here. And Lum met with Richard to talk about what Richard was creating. And on the plane tree, there is fruit to a plane tree. These little tiny pieces of fruit, not edible, but tiny pieces of fruit. And so the lights that Richard is making are sort of branches of a plane tree that have fruit on them, like is in the mosaic, and and those will be what the lights are in. We regularly send patients kind of onto the internet by or to like Longview or Portland, but there's special toothpaste and I don't know, all kinds of different special things that you don't find at regular stores. We're also going to have wigs and scarves in this location. We have a team of volunteers who have worked with the American Cancer Society to become trained on how to care for wigs. And American Cancer Society gives us wigs that we then provide patients and go through all the proper wearing and care and all of that with the wigs. So it's been a really neat program, and so that's going to move over here. We've got a nice fitting room that's in the back over here, and then a private consultation room that's off of this room so that you can kind of have private meetings where all of that stuff is done. There is a lot of lab work associated with cancer care, and we have put a lab into the building. So not only will blood draws happen here, there will actually be equipment in here that the labs can be done on. So instead of having it to have to be walked over to the hospital or sent out to some other lab, about 90% of the labs that we need for our patients will be actually processed right here in the building. And so we'll have an employee from the lab over here working and actually doing all of that running of the labs. Yoga education session classes and support groups will go on in that room down there. And then these 2 rooms are very special. We have integrative therapies rooms. So Over the last few years, I think there's been more and more research showing that it's not just the chemotherapy or the radiation that really gets the patient through this process. It's a sort of multidisciplinary team that's taking care of the patients, and that includes estheticians. So we've been working with local estheticians to come in on Fridays and, teach women about applying makeup when they're going through chemotherapy or doing makeover days. We found that shaving their heads when they're about to go through chemotherapy is a really difficult decision, and like going to your local beauty shop to have your head shaved is not a pleasant experience. So they would be able to have their own, I use the terms cosmetologist and esthetician. I'm not sure what the exact right term that they prefer is, but their local beautician who's doing that for them could come in here and do those things here. We also have an acupuncturist who's going to be here one day per week, a massage therapist who's going to be here one day a week, and Allie Evans, the naturopath here in town, is going to come in and see patients one day a week.
About what?
It's a Philips big bore CT scanner. So it actually, when you say big bore, it means that the tube that the patient goes into is bigger than the standard size tube, so you can accommodate a bigger patient by having that big bore. So we have a concrete pad that's going out there where a mobile PET CT unit will pull up once a week. At first it's going to be on Fridays. Now PET CT is another part of the imaging process during cancer. The oncologists will use PET to help with staging, but when you get PET, you have a contrast, a radio isotope that is injected into you that is taken up really quickly by rapidly dividing cells. And so it sort of makes cancer cells glow on a CT scan. And so one day a week, that helps us not only to stage the cancer and some of the treatment planning, but it also helps with progression of disease, because the couch for the device actually moves a lot while the patient is on it, and it has to be, as it's moving over the floor, it can't hit other pieces, like the concrete that's underneath it. And it has to be perfectly level, because the machine has to know that the beam is going to exactly the right spot. So we had some delays in terms of actually pouring the concrete in here, because when you pour 3.5 feet of concrete, if it's not exactly meeting those specifications, it's not the easiest to jackhammer all this up and pour it again. So there were delays, but when they finally poured it, the team from Electa came in to do their inspection, and they come in and put lasers on the ceiling and everything. And the guy from Electa said that he does about 6 of these inspections a month around the world, because he goes around the world to do this. And he said about 95% of the time when he does that initial inspection, he finds something wrong that the contractor had done wrong that they have to go back and fix. Not always jackhammering out the floor, though he said about one of those 6, they have to go and jackhammer out the whole floor. But he actually came to our owner-contractor meeting that day after the inspection to say, this is one of the first projects I've ever been on where I'm not actually having your guys fix anything with the vault. So the delays that we had to kind of make sure we got everything right were really well worth it, because he was incredibly complimentary about the job they did on all of the concrete work.